The traffic was thick that morning. The sun had just begun to rise over Los Angeles, painting the sky with soft orange and pink streaks. Cars were lined up like dominoes, moving an inch every few seconds. Horns were already honking. People were already late, and right there in the middle of it all, in an old black car that didn't stand out, sat Keanu Reeves. He had no bodyguards with him, no tinted windows, just him, sitting quietly, waiting like everyone else. He had a meeting across town, but he wasn't in a rush. There was a book open on the passenger seat. He had been reading it at red lights, softly turning the pages and smiling sometimes like the words reminded him of something warm. But that calm was shattered in an instant when the loud roar of a motorcycle engine cut through the air and a biker zipped past him. Swerving close to his car, slapping his side mirror with the back of his hand. "Move it, Grandpa." The biker yelled through his helmet, loud enough for people nearby to hear. He laughed cruelly as he sped ahead, weaving through the tight lanes with reckless speed. Keanu didn't flinch. He reached for his mirror, adjusted it gently back into place, and then looked ahead again. Not a single word came from him, not a single flash of anger on his face. He just sat there, still. The driver in the car next to him leaned out and said, "That guy's insane. You okay?" Keanu gave a small nod. "I'm okay." But the driver didn't know who he was talking to. The world knew Keanu Reeves, the actor, the action hero, the legend. But on that street, in that moment, he was just a man trying to get through morning traffic without losing his peace. The minutes passed. Traffic started to inch forward again. Slowly, slowly, the cars began to move. Like everyone had taken one collective breath and agreed to be patient. But 3 blocks ahead, the biker wasn't moving anymore. Keanu saw it first. The motorcycle was on its side, half on the sidewalk, half in the street. The biker was sprawled next to it, helmet off, groaning. One leg twisted wrong, his face pale. People were slowing down. Some stared, some took their phones out, but no one stopped Keanu. Pulled his car over quietly. He stepped out without rush. Walked toward the biker. Not to judge, not to say anything. Just to help. The biker looked up, and his face changed. "You?" he whispered, almost choking on the word. "You're Keanu Reeves?" Keanu knelt beside him. His voice was steady. "Kind. Don't try to move. Just breathe." The biker's eyes filled with shame. He tried to speak, but his throat tightened. Keanu gently checked his leg. Not pressing, just looking. "You might have broken it. I'm gonna call an ambulance, okay?" The biker nodded, his voice almost gone. And then he said the one thing, "Keanu." "Didn't expect. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you." Keanu paused, looked into his eyes. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me better." The biker looked away, his jaw clenched. Not from pain, but from guilt. Keanu called for help, gave clear directions, then he stayed. He didn't leave when the sirens echoed in the distance. He didn't walk back to his car to avoid the crowd. He stayed kneeling on the pavement next to a man who had mocked him minutes before. When the paramedics arrived, they were surprised too. They knew his face. But Keanu didn't want pictures. He didn't want thanks. He just wanted to make sure the man was safe. As the biker was lifted onto the stretcher, he reached out and gripped Keanu's arm. "Why did you stop?" he asked. Keanu looked at him and gave a small, almost invisible smile. "Because kindness isn't something you earn. It's something you give." And with that, he stepped back, let the medics do their job, and quietly walked back to his car. He didn't know the biker's name. He didn't know what he was going through. But something in that man's eyes told him he had been fighting. More than just traffic that morning, Keanu started the engine. The traffic had cleared now. The road was open, but his heart stayed heavy, not with anger, with hope. Hope. That maybe, just maybe, that moment changed something. He didn't want credit. He just wanted the world to remember. One act of patience can break a chain of cruelty. And sometimes the people who lash out the loudest are the ones who need kindness the most. Now pause here. Because what happened after the hospital changed everything? The biker's name was Aaron, 29 years old.
At
Born and raised in Burbank. He hadn't told Keanu that. But when the ambulance took him, the hospital asked questions. They checked his ID, called his mother, wrote things down. And for the first time in a long time, someone was actually paying attention to Aaron. He had no insurance, hadn't held a steady job in a year. He delivered food at night on the motorcycle that now lay cracked and useless on the side of the road. He wasn't always like this. He used to fix bikes, build them even. He used to be calm, but something inside him had changed in the last few years. Too many losses. Too many people leaving. He didn't even know why he snapped at that stranger in the car that morning. He was angry at life, at people who looked peaceful when he couldn't feel peace at all. But now he was sitting in a hospital bed, leg wrapped in a cast, and a nurse told him something strange. "You know the man who called? The ambulance? The one who stayed with you?" Aaron nodded. He left this. She held out a folded piece of paper. Inside it was a card. Plain white, no logo, no contact, just an address scribbled in ink. Under it, 3 simple words. "If you need anything." Aaron stared at it for a long time. The name on the envelope said. Keanu, he hadn't imagined it. It wasn't a dream of the man he mocked. It helped him, and now he had given him an address. Days passed. Aaron's leg hurt, but something deeper hurt more. The shame. He played that moment over and over in his head. Why did he lash out? Why didn't he just say sorry in the street? Why did the stranger still help? He stared at the card every night. Until one afternoon, 4 days later, a nurse wheeled him outside for some air. The sun was high. The breeze soft, and at the edge of the parking lot stood a man, black shirt, jeans, quiet posture. Keanu. Aaron blinked, thought maybe he was seeing things. But Keanu stepped forward, gentle like always. No cameras, no attention. Just presence. "I was nearby," he said. "Thought I'd check in." Aaron's throat tightened. You didn't have to." "I know," Keanu said. "Said sometimes you do things not because you have to, but because it matters." Aaron lowered his head. "I don't know why. I was like that. I've been angry for a long time." Keanu nodded slowly, not judging, just listening. "You ever work with bikes?" Keanu asked. Aaron looked up. Used to build them, fix engines. Not anymore." "Why not?" Shrugged. "Things fell apart. Lost my shop. Got in some trouble. Life kind of stopped making sense." Keanu stood there for a moment, then sat on the edge of the bench nearby. "You know," he said softly, "I've been through a lot too. Lost people, lost direction. Had days where getting out of bed felt impossible." Aaron looked at him. "But you're Keanu Reeves. You've got everything." Keanu shook his head. "No one has everything. Not really. And sometimes the ones who look like they're fine are just better at hiding." The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was honest. Keanu reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded paper. "There's a place not far from here. Garage run by a friend. He works on vintage bikes. Said he's looking for someone good with their hands. No pressure. Jet, if you're ready." Aaron took the paper, stared at it. "You don't even know me?" Keanu smiled gently. "I know enough." And then he stood. "Heal up. Take your time. But don't forget you're more than one bad morning." Aaron watched him walk away, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like the world was against him. He felt seen, and he promised himself if he ever got the chance, he'd pass it forward. But that wasn't the end. Because what happened next wasn't just about Aaron healing. It was about how one act of kindness would ripple further than anyone expected. Now pause here, because someone else was watching that day, and they weren't just passing by. His name was Jake. He had been sitting 3 cars behind Keanu that morning when it all happened. Jake had seen the biker speed past, seen the mirror get hit, seen Keanu stay still, calm, not reacting with anger like most would. Jake had even mumbled something to himself like, "Guy's a saint." But then, minutes later, he had seen Keanu pull over, had seen him walk to the fallen biker. "Stay. Help. Call. Wait. Comfort. Jake didn't film it. He didn't pull out his phone. Instead, he just watched. And something about it stuck in his mind for days. Jake wasn't a journalist, wasn't a celebrity watcher. He worked at a local community center. Helped kids from rough homes. His days were long, his nights even longer. He saw a lot of pain. A lot of people who never had someone believe in them. And yet here was a Manna Global star kneeling on asphalt for a stranger who'd insulted him. That image wouldn't leave Jake's head. 3 days after the accident, he looked up the hospital, called to ask if the biker was okay. They didn't give him a name, but they said someone with a motorcycle injury had been discharged recently. So Jake went to the site where the crash happened, and what he found surprised him. The motorcycle, though scratched and broken, was gone. But there was a folded piece of cardboard wedged into a telephone pole nearby, like someone had written something and left it behind. He pulled it out. The writing was shaky, ink smudged, but it read, "To the man in black. Thank you for not treating me the way I treated you." Jake stared at the words. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He walked to the rec center where he worked, sat down in his office, and started typing. He wrote a blog post. Not viral, not clickbait, just truth. "I saw something in traffic that reminded me people can still surprise you." He didn't name names. He didn't say Keanu Reeves. Just described a man helping someone who had mocked him. He talked about what it means to forgive someone in real time. What it means to be kind, even when kindness isn't deserved. By the next day, the blog had 200 shares, then 1,000, then 12,000 people
started leaving comments like, "This gives me hope."
"We need more men like this." This reminded me of my dad. He was like this too. And while the world guessed who it might be, the message was bigger than the mystery. It became a conversation. School teachers printed it and shared it in classrooms. Counselors posted it on their doors. Even therapists started using it in sessions to talk about anger and response, and in a quiet apartment not far away. Aaron saw it too. He was sitting on the couch, legs still healing, flipping through his phone when the story popped up. He clicked it, read it. Every word. When he got to the quote from the cardboard sign, he froze. His sign, someone had found it. Someone had seen, and that's when something inside him shifted again. He didn't just want to heal anymore. He wanted to rebuild. Not just his leg, it's not just his bike, his life. And the first step was taking up the job Keanu had left for him. He pulled the paper from his nightstand. The garage name, the address. It wasn't just a chance, it was a door. Aaron didn't know what was waiting on the other side, but he knew one thing this time. He was going to walk through it. Now pause here, because what Aaron found inside that garage wasn't just a job, it was a second chance, wrapped in grease and chrome. The garage was tucked behind an old music store in Echo Park. It didn't look like much from the outside. Faded red door, paint peeling, a sign that read Walt's Vintage Bikes in crooked letters. Aaron stood outside holding the paper Keanu had given him. His leg still hurt. The limp was real. But he had made it, on a borrowed bus pass. A beat-up backpack, and a stomach full of nerves. He knocked once. The door opened with a creak. The man who answered was short. Wide-shouldered, silver hair tied back, grease on his hands, eyes that looked straight through excuses. "You must be the guy Keanu sent," he said. Aaron nodded. "I'm Aaron. I'm Walt. Get in here." The inside was something else. It smelled like oil and old leather, shelves stacked with parts from bikes that hadn't been made in decades. A radio played soft jazz in the corner, and under a single hanging light was a frame of a 1968 Norton Commando half-built. Gleaming like a relic from another life, Walt handed Aaron a towel. "I need hands, not resumes. Show me what you can do." Aaron didn't speak. He limped to the nearest toolbox, opened it, and started organizing bolts without being told. Walt watched him, waited, said nothing. By noon, Aaron had fixed a loose clutch on a 1975 Honda CB750. By 1, He'd reassembled part of a carburetor that hadn't been touched in months. Walt grunted. Not bad. Aaron nodded. I go, for giving me a shot? Walt wiped his hands. Looked at him for a long second. I'm not doing it for you, he said. I'm doing it because a friend asked me to. But now that I see you work like this, I might just keep you around. Aaron didn't know what to say, just smiled. For the first time in weeks, maybe months. Days passed, weeks followed. The limp faded. The hands got stronger. He started showing up early, staying late. Sometimes, sleeping in the back room when buses didn't run. He didn't touch his old motorcycle. Not yet. It sat in the corner. It was covered with a tarp. Waiting. But something bigger happened during those weeks. Aaron didn't just fix bikes. He started fixing himself. He apologized to the people he'd pushed away. He cleaned out his tiny apartment. Read again. Books on craftsmanship, focus, stillness, and every Friday evening after closing. He wrote a letter to Keanu, but he never sent them. He kept them in a box. Dozens of folded pages, like prayers. Until one Friday, nearly 3 months after the accident, Walt handed him a package. No name on it, no note. Just wrapped in brown paper. Aaron opened it slowly. Inside was a photo, a picture from years ago, of a younger Keanu sitting on the exact same Norton Commando frame they were rebuilding, and under the photo, written in small pen, "Thanks for finishing what I started." Karin stood frozen. That bike, the one he had spent hours working on, had once been Keanu's, and Walt had let him rebuild it without telling him. Aaron walked to the back of the shop, lifted the tarp off his own broken bike, touched the dented gas tank. He would fix it. Not because he needed it to ride again, but because it was time to stop carrying the past like a burden. Keanu had given him more than a job, more than a chance. He had given him dignity. And one act of kindness was now turning into something larger. Because what Keanu didn't know was that Aaron wasn't the only one healing. Now pause here, because Keanu Reeves was hiding something to Ann. It had nothing to do with bikes. While Aaron was rebuilding engines in a dusty garage, Keanu was trying to rebuild something much harder, his ability to trust again. Most people saw Keanu as calm, quiet, always kind, and that was true. Kindness doesn't mean there's no pain behind it. Sometimes it's the opposite. It had been almost a year since he lost someone again. Not to death this time, but to distance. A woman he had grown close to, shared books with, laughed with. Someone who had quietly become a part of his world. But she had walked away. Said he was too good, too quiet, too wrapped in the pain of his past. Keanu hadn't argued. He just let her go. And after that, he'd spent most of his days alone again. Reading, walking, watching the world pass by. The morning of the traffic incident. Wasn't heading to a meeting like he had said. He was driving to visit a young cancer patient who had written to him months ago. The kid's name was Miles, 11 years old, lived with his aunt, had written a letter that said, "Dear Mr. Reeves, when I feel sad, I watch your movies and they make me think maybe I can be strong too." Keanu had read that letter 10 times, and he had promised himself he would show up, quietly, without fanfare, just be there. But the delay from the biker's crash had thrown off the timing, and when he got to the hospital that morning, Miles had already been taken in for treatment. Sedated, not able to see anyone, Keanu sat in the hallway for an hour, waiting, thinking. He wasn't angry at Aaron, not even for a second. But part of him wondered if things always had to go like this, him giving, life-taking. Yet that's the thing about Keanu. He never stopped showing up. A week later, he came back. This time, Miles was awake. The moment Keanu walked into the room, the boy lit up like someone had turned on a light inside him. "I knew you'd come," Miles whispered. Keanu sat beside him, didn't bring posters, didn't bring anything flashy, just brought a hand to hold. End of story. He told Miles about a man who mocked him in traffic, and how he was now rebuilding bikes in a garage. He told him that people are more than their worst moments. Miles listened, like it was the only thing that mattered, and when Keanu stood to leave, Miles asked something that caught him off guard. "Do you still feel sad sometimes?" Keanu paused and knelt so they were eye to eye. I do, he said. But the sadness reminds me how much I've loved. Miles nodded, like he understood more than most adults ever would. That night, Keanu sat in his car for a long time. He thought about Aaron, thought about Miles. He thought about how maybe, just maybe, the way to heal wasn't to shut the world out, but to keep opening doors, even when it hurt. And while he didn't know it yet, the door he'd opened for Aaron was about to open something even bigger. For both of them, because Walt, the man who ran the garage, had plans. Plans that involved Aaron and someone else from Keanu's past who had been watching from a distance, waiting for a reason to reach out again. Now pause here, because when Keanu walked into that garage one final time, he wasn't alone. It had been over 3 months since the traffic incident. Aaron had fully healed. The limp was gone. His hands were steady again. His laugh came easier. Now, the garage had changed him, not just because of the work, but because someone had believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. And now, Walt had a surprise. Someone's coming today, he told Aaron that morning. Someone I want you to meet. Aaron looked up from the workbench. Think so? Him? Walt just smiled. You'll see. By noon, the shop door creaked open. Aaron looked up and froze. Keanu Reeves stood there. Beside him was a woman, tall, brown eyes. Long coat, soft presence. Aaron stepped back, wiped his hands. His heart was racing. Hey, Keanu said quietly. Mind if we come in? Aaron nodded. Of course. I wasn't expecting. Keanu looked around, smiled at the half-finished bikes. The smell of grease. The quiet hum of life being rebuilt. Looks like you've been busy, he said. Aaron grinned. Yeah, been good. Different. Then he looked at the woman beside Keanu. This is Rachel, Keanu said, an old friend. Rachel stepped forward, extended her hand. I've heard a lot about you. Aaron shook it gently. Walt walked in. From the back, wiping his hands. You bringing her around finally? He teased Keanu. Keanu chuckled. Figured it was time. They all sat around the old work table in the back. For mismatched chairs, mugs of coffee. The kind of silence that wasn't uncomfortable, just full of understanding. Rachel looked around. I used to come here when I was a teenager. Walt let me sit in the corner while he worked. I never thought I'd come back like this. Nodded. She was always curious. Stubborn, too. Keanu looked at Aaron. You rebuilt the Norton. Aaron nodded. Yeah. Didn't know it was yours at first. Walt kept it quiet. Keanu smiled. You did it better than I could have. Aaron lowered his eyes. Thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay you. Keanu leaned forward. You already have. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small set of keys. What's this? Aaron asked. Go look out back, Walt said. Aaron stepped outside, and there it was. His old motorcycle. Fully restored, polished, the dents gone. Engine humming like new. Aaron turned back, speechless. Keanu stepped beside him. Walt and I worked on it, he said. Figured you might want it back, not as a reminder of who you were, but of how far you've come. Aaron's hands shook as he took the keys. This means more than you know, he whispered. Keanu looked at him gently. I think I do know. They stood in silence. Then Rachel joined them. She looked at Keanu, then at Aaron. He told me this story, she said. What happened that day, how you reacted, how you changed. It made me want to see this side of him again. Keanu looked down. Rachel touched his hand. You show up for people, even when they don't deserve it? Even when you're hurting? That's rare, Keanu nodded. Sometimes, helping someone else is the only way to help yourself. Rachel smiled. Maybe it's time we stop running from things. Keanu looked at Aaron. They're not the bike. We don't always get to fix what's broken, he said, but when we do, we should take the chance. The sun began to set behind them. The sky glowed orange. Aaron sat on the motorcycle, started the engine. It purred. And for the first time, didn't feel like a man trying to escape his past. He felt like someone heading somewhere new. Keanu and Rachel stood beside him. Two people reconnecting not just with each other but with hope. Walt leaned. In the doorway, watching it all unfold, he knew what the world did. That small moments like traffic, or crashes, or quiet hands that rebuild engine scan, changed the course of lives. Keanu turned to Aaron one last time. Ride safe. Aaron smiled. And you keep showing up. They shook hands. Firm, honest. And as Aaron rode down the street, engine humming, the wind on his face, he didn't look back. He didn't need to, because some moments don't belong in the rear view. They belong right where you carry them forward.